Well, Glass, welcome to part two of our discussion of depreciation and our PowerPoint slides. While most taxpayers will use bonus depreciation or makers the regular way, there are options that are allowed. There are some choices that are not regular depreciation. In a couple of situations, these are required, right? We'll learn about the alternative minimum tax later, and that system of taxes actually requires us to use the ADS system for depreciation. So there is some application to these other options, but for most part, these don't get used a whole lot, and so we won't spend a lot of time on them. But if you're looking at the time periods, here's where you can see a difference for the ADS. It's just longer, which means there's going to be lower depreciation. Anything that doesn't fit goes 12 years automatically under the ADS system. And you have to choose that each year on a class-by-class basis. Now, onto a concept of Section 179. Now, this, with bonus depreciation, is going to be a lot less popular because this has got more restrictions than bonus depreciation. And so taxpayers are going to more likely use bonus depreciation. This was popular before bonus in the sense that you could depreciate something maybe fully in the first year, and the limit is $1 million you can depreciate, but that gets phased out if your property that you put into place is more than $2.5 million. So this is not really available for larger companies anyway. So this was always a small business option, although you might say $2.5 million of property is pretty big for a small business, but still on the small side of business. The bad limitation on Section 179, it cannot be more than your income from the business. If you take more of an upfront deduction and you can't use it because you don't have enough income, it carries over the next year. It's not like it goes away, but you don't get the full benefit. That is not the case for bonus. So this is one of the reasons why taxpayers will more likely use bonus than Section 179. Tangible property used in a straight business has to be by purchase, can't be gift or inheritance, and that's similar to bonus. And you elect it. Again, it's a choice. You don't have to do it. You can choose it up to, and you can choose any amount, if you will, but there are some maximums. If you put into service $2,265,000, business income limitation $150,000, $1 million maximum. Okay, they're not over the threshold of $2.5 million, so they don't have to reduce that million, so they could deduct $1 million of the $2.265. Now, because their income is only $150,000, the only amount they could deduct this year would be $150,000, which would wipe out their business income. The remainder of the $1 million would carry over to future years. Okay, and then you'd have the same limitation. Depreciation is reported on Form 4562. The first part is all about Section 179. So again, it will be used less because of the bonus. Okay, it talks about the maximum you can put into place and lists the assets and the carryover. Now, just below that is where the bonus depreciation is placed on the Form 4562. Now, on the back of the 4562, now, front part of 4562, you You have your bonus depreciation that you're going to take separate from any new assets. And new assets are listed by the type of asset they are. So there's a line for 5-year property, 7-year property. Only things that you acquire during the year are put on there as on the form 4562 detail. The all older assets that are being depreciated get lumped together in one line on the 4562. So now on the back of the 4562 is what's called a listed property. These are assets that the IRS has determined are likely that people are maybe using for personal use, not just for business. So they're being more skeptical about the depreciation on it for fear that taxpayers are being untruthful about the use of them. So they're called listed property because you're going to have to list them individually, and you don't get to lump them together like you do all the other assets. So what constitute them? First of all, here's the limits on listed property. If it's used less than 50% in the business, you can't use Section 179, can't use bonus, and you have to use a straight line ADS. So there's one area where the ADS comes into play. These are examples. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that they're worried about. Transportation, entertainment type things, boats especially, but also all your passenger automobiles. Computers, unless they're used 100%. If there's partially used in business, then you have to list it. So you put this service, new listed property, 2,000 is 60% for business, 30% investment, 10% for personal use. Because we're over 50%, you can elect Section 179 on the 60%. You could also use bonus on the 60%. Okay. Use bonus on the 30%, but not on the 10%. You can use regular depreciation on the 30%, but not on the 10%. Okay, so you could use all bonus on all of it, as we said. New property 45. Now we're below 50%, so neither Section 179 or bonus can be used. Okay, you have to use it, the 80% that's used for business and investment together using the straight line ADS recovery. Okay, so here is the back side of the 4562 where the listed property. Notice there's lines to put each asset. Remember, only the assets that qualify as listed property go on this page 2. All right. And then there's actually an area to how much business use and all that type of thing, so they can see if it goes below 50%. And you calculate the depreciation. There's 2 sections: one for more than 50, one for less than 40, one more less than 50%. All right. Luxury cars. Some limits on depreciation. The IRS got tired of, and the tax law got tired of people buying really expensive automobiles and getting to deduct huge amounts of depreciation. So they decided that no matter what the car is, there's a limit to how much depreciation you can deduct on it. Okay? And it doesn't have to do with how luxurious the car is. It's simply a matter of cost. All right? And this applies to passenger vehicles. And those that don't have, there's different limits, or limits don't apply to things that are really not going to be used for passenger use. They don't apply to limousines. They don't apply to people using a car for as a taxi. They don't apply to semi-trucks or large trucks or delivery vehicles or things like that. So this is for a regular passenger vehicle. So here's the rules. You have to see where it was put in service. So if it's put in service any year between 2012 and 2017, then in year one you get to take 3160 unless you take bonus, and then it's 11160. And remember, back then it had to be, the bonus was only available for new vehicles, so it wasn't for used vehicles. And the second year you take this much depreciation, third year, and then you take this much depreciation every year until the car is fully depreciated. So I don't care if you paid $60,000 for the car or $100,000 for the car, your depreciation is going to be the same, and you're going to depreciate for 4 years and on at $1,875 for a long time to get that fully depreciated. Now, you see that the new tax law increased this quite a bit. So for 2018, you get $10,000, so a pretty big increase. At 18, if you claim bonus, then 16, then 9,600, and then for however long it takes to depreciate the whole vehicle, 5760 a year. So you can still see that if you spend $100,000 on a Lexus or something, you're still going to depreciate it not over 5 years. You're going to depreciate it over 10 or 15 to get it fully depreciated, because this is the maximum. I don't care whether you apply Section 179 or anything, any other bonus, whatever. These are the limits. So a new car, 2016, should we go back in that in time and figure out the maximum for 2016 would be the 11,160 as long as she's using bonus. If you're in 2018, then you're in the third year, you would use the 3,050. Okay. If this was 2018, just to see how you calculate regular depreciation, how it doesn't apply. Okay. Now, if it was regular depreciation was less than the maximum, then that's what you use. Okay. Doesn't matter whether you use Section 179 or not. And then in year 2018, as we discussed, okay, the maximum would be 50, and obviously you're going to have people with assets that are cars that have been being depreciated from past years, so you need to be able to use that to know how much it is. If the regular depreciation is less than the maximum, then you use that amount. If you don't use it for 100%, then you have to reduce these limits down by the percentage. So instead of being $18,000 maximum, it would actually be $12,600. So this is if you the old 50% bonus. So it would be at the maximum that we said before. We're going to pick up on leased vehicles in part 3 of our explanation here.